Jeff? Yeah, we'll just go. Jeremy Chapman. Mike Brown. Jacob Isbiner. No, here. Just line up. Hopkins, Craig Hopkins. Matthew Gray. Who is this guy? Ringer. Alex Hampus. David Gebber. Kurt Kurdowski. Okay, these boys have all received and worked very hard to accomplish a big step in the Cub Scout process. So why don't we just all applaud them and congratulate them. Jeff also received, in fact, Dylan received a couple of arrows with 2 silver, 1, okay, and Jeff received a badge as well as a gold arrow and 2 silver. We have Jeremy Chapman received a badge as well as a gold arrow. Mike Brown received his badge as well as 1 gold.
C'est l'aviron qui nous mène, c'est l'aviron qui nous mène en haut. Bonsoir mes chers amis. Voici un vrai voyageur il y a 200 ans. Mais n'importe quel voyageur, moi. Oh non. Voyez-vous, parmi tous les voyageurs, je suis le plus rare, le plus fort, et regardez-moi bien, le plus beau. Oh, you people don't understand French? Too bad. Let me tell you what I just said. I said, here I am, a French voyageur and fur trader of 200 years ago. But I'm not just any ordinary voyageur. Oh no. You see, among all the voyageurs, I am the bravest, the toughest, the strongest, and if you look real close, the most handsome. Now, this evening, I'm going to tell you the exciting story of the beginning of our state of Minnesota. I'm going to go way back thousands of years ago and show you how the Indians lived here along the Mississippi River. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to tell you and show you how the explorers, the first white people to come to Minnesota, came here 400 years ago. And then I'm going to tell you about the fur trade with the Indians. Then I'm going to tell you about the French voyageur. That strong, tough fellow could carry tremendous weights on his back. He could endure any kind of weather. He traveled thousands of miles through different Indian tribes and into the unknown forest. He was fearless. He was brave, strong, and at the same time he was a jolly fellow. Liked to sing and tell stories. All right, now I'm going to start in the beginning. Good place to start, huh? All right, here we go. Way back in 1534, over 450 years ago, here comes a Frenchman by the name of Jacques Cartier. Across the raging Atlantic, comes up the St. Lawrence River, he discovered Canada. claimed Canada for France. So in the beginning, Canada belonged to France. Now that's exactly 42 years after Columbus discovered America. When did Columbus discover America? Right. Boy, we got smart historians here. 1492. 42 years later, the French are here in Canada. Then several years later, here comes Champlain, another Frenchman. And he's bringing some colonists over, and they're going to make the first settlement here at Quebec. Well, as Champlain and his men approached Quebec, they saw a lot of people on shore. Who did they see? Indians. Only Indians lived here for 10,000 years. Before America was discovered, Indians were here in North and South America, hundreds of different tribes. So when Champlain saw those Indians on shore, he said to his men, he said, "Men, wait a minute, let's take it easy. Let's not rush ashore. Those people don't know who we are. If we suddenly go ashore," so here's what we'll do. When we go ashore, we'll bring some presents with us. And we'll give those presents to the Indians to show the Indian that we want to be their friends and we wish them no harm. And so they took presents with them and gave the presents to the Indian. Well, the presents they gave the Indian astounded and surprised the Indian, because you must remember, for 10,000 years that the Indians lived here in North America, before America was discovered, the Indians lived without anything made out of iron or steel. Now what does that mean? That means the Indians had no factories, no machines to make things. What does that mean? That means that the Indians had only their hands and the substances in nature around them to make the things they needed. Bones from animals, stones from the field, wood from trees, that's all they had to use. And so when the French gave the Indians presents of guns, steel knives and axes, steel traps, pots and pans, cloth and blankets, oh, the Indians were not only surprised, they had never seen these things before, but they were very pleased because it's going to make their life and their work easier. Well, the Indian turns around and he says, "Let's give some presents back to the French," because they're afraid of the Frenchmen. On board those big sailboats, boom, boom. What's boom, boom? Cannons. And they said the Frenchman comes ashore with thunder in each hand. They're afraid of guns. And so now they're going to give some presents back to the Indian. Oh, now it's the white man, the Frenchman's turn to be astounded when the Indians gave them presents back. Who can tell me some of the things that the Indians gave to the white people when they came here that the white people from Europe had never seen before until they met the Indians? Furs, all right. What else did the Indians give to the world? Name me something yet.
Indian boy.
Yes, canoes, right. What else?
Paints.
Right, listen to this. Corn, tobacco, potatoes, tomatoes, peanuts, popcorn, beans, onions, wild rice, blueberries, cranberries. Do you know that the Indians gave to the world 150 new things to eat that the people in the rest of the world knew nothing about? Not only that, but the Indian gave to the world the wonderful birch bark canoe, the snow invented by the Indian. The hammock comes from the Indian. Do you know that cotton comes from the Indians? Rubber comes from the Indians. Coca-Cola comes from the Indians. Chocolate comes from the Indians. And all of these things will surprise you. And so when the French, they also gave to the French some beautiful furs. Well, they had furs in Europe, but they were running out because for thousands of years they were killing animals in Europe for their furs. So when the Indians gave the French some beautiful furs that they had never seen before, the Frenchmen got an idea. Well, the French are smart anyhow, you know. The French got an idea. Said, wait a minute, here is the Indian who needs and wants all kinds of manufactured goods, things made in factories like guns, and steel knives and axes, and traps, and pots and pans made out of iron and steel, and cloth. Let's send to France for shiploads of those things. And then we'll take those and we'll give them to the Indian. Then we'll say to the Indian, Mr. Indian, you give us now in return your beautiful furs. And the Frenchman said, we're going to take those furs by the thousands of pounds and ship it back to France, and we're going to make big money, called the fur trade. Do you know that for over 200 years, from the 1600s when the French first came here until the 1800s when the farmers and the loggers came to Minnesota, the only business and industry taking place right here in the central part of North America was the fur trade. Nothing else was going on. No farming, no logging, nothing but the fur trade with the Indians. All right. Now, in order to understand the impact of the fur trade on the life of the Indians, you have to understand how the Indians lived before America was discovered, before the fur trade came in their midst, before the fur trader, the voyageur, came to visit them with all of his wonderful presents that he's going to give them in exchange for their beautiful fur. Because 400 years ago, when the fur trader first came here, how did the Indians live before America was discovered? What does it look like?
Part of an axe head.
Aha! There's a smart Indian there. Right, this is an axe head. Now he has to make it out of stone. Remember, he has nothing in iron or steel. Well, you know, rocks come in all kinds of shapes except the shape of an axe head. You have to make it by chipping it. Now he had no steel chisel or steel hammer to chisel this with, because he's got to make this edge here as sharp as he can, not too thin or too sharp, it'll break. And so he has to chip it with other rocks or the antlers of the elk. And he chips for hours. He makes this as sharp as he can. And then he turns the rock around, he's got to make that groove, because he's got to tie a handle on that axe head in order to swing it with great force to chop down a tree. Today you would put this on an electric motor with a grinding wheel. In 2 minutes it would grind a nice groove. The Indian had no electricity, no machine. How do you make that groove? Watch. He would take a handful of sand and he would put it on the rock. Then he would make from the hide of the deer a strap about this wide. And he would wrap the strap around the sand and around the rock. Then he would pull this way, and he would pull that way, back and forth, and the sand would wear the rock down until he had a nice groove, and now he can tie a handle on it. The Indian goes in the woods with his axe, looks for some tall, thin trees about this big around, because he needs long poles to make his teepee, his home for the winter. Over the poles, he puts the hide of the bear, the buffalo, the deer, the elk, or the moose, to keep the weather out. Now, his family is in a nice, warm home and teepee for the winter. Now he wants to feed his family, so he's going to go out and bring back some meat. Oh, rabbits, squirrels, deer was very plentiful here. He's going to go out and bring back some deer meat. How does he kill the deer? Bow and arrow, right. Let me show you how smart the Indians were in making this arrow. They have to make an arrowhead. And they have to make it very pointed, thin, and sharp. Because when he sends it from his powerful bow, this arrow has to go through the thick, tough hide of the deer. You know, the Indian didn't go out and grab the deer by the tail. He has to send this arrow into the animal's body. All right. What kind of stone did he discover makes the best arrowhead?
Flint.
Flint. Right. Smart Indian. Flint. Now he's got to make it straight. Suppose an Indian made a crooked arrow. You know what would happen? He'd go out, shoot at the deer, miss the deer, hit his grandpa. Well, he kills the deer. After he kills the deer, he wants this deer hide the worst way. Oh, does he want that deer hide? What's he going to use it for? Right. The Indian women and girls were excellent tanners. To tan a hide means to take a hide that's full of meat and blood and very stiff and dry it out and work it so that it's nice and dry and supple and will not spoil. It takes many days to make a deer hide. And so she's going to leave the fur on, use it for a coat or a blanket. She's going to scrape the fur off with a bone tool made from the leg of the deer. She cuts it in half. This edge here is very sharp. She scrapes the fur off, and then she takes this hide and she works on this for several days until it's nice and supple and tough and warm, and she's going to make clothes with it. Jackets, dresses, pants, moccasins of all kinds. See? Tall ones for winter, short ones for in the summer. And she's going to make laces and straps with that. She's going to use that for 101 different things. Well, now you don't go up to a deer, you know, and pull his hide off with your fingernails. Oh, no. You've got to have a skinning knife. So he goes along the shores of a lake or a river, finds the right kind of a stone, chips it, polishes it on another stone, and makes it as sharp as he can, and now he's got a knife to skin the hide off. All right? Now, he's got to have a different kind of knife, because he wants to cut that big deer in pieces so that he can put it on his back and take the meat back to the teepee. So he needs a hunting knife made out of stone. Then the Indian women take the meat, and they put in some wild rice and some potatoes and some onions, and the Indians sit with a birch bark plate. They're ready to eat. Well, now they got to have a table knife. A sharp little knife, you see, made out of stone, so they can cut the meat in small pieces so they can chew it and swallow it. This is an Indian table knife. And then when the Indian women sew things together, they don't use a small bone needle from an animal or from a fish, because a small needle will not go through this thick, tough hide. You need a big needle like this, and she takes that from the ankle of the deer, and she puts it on a rock, and she begins to sharpen it, makes it real pointed. Then suppose she's going to make a pouch, tobacco pouch, or a pouch to store corn, or blueberries, or cranberries for the winter. She takes this big needle, she makes a hole here, she makes a hole there, all the way around. And then she cuts some laces, and she laces the things together like this. All right? Now, let me show you something else. This is the shoulder blade of a buffalo. Now, if the Indian takes the shoulder blade of a buffalo and turns it around like this and ties a handle on it, what has he got?
A hole.
A hole, right. Now, the Indians had gardens, but they didn't have any plows. Plows are made in factories. The Indians didn't have any horses for 10,000 years until the white people came here. Horses had to be brought over from Europe on the ships. Then the Indians got horses. But before the white people came, America was discovered. He had to make a grub hole like this and grub every inch of ground where he's going to plant his garden. Because you don't throw seed on the top of the ground. You have to have the ground nice and soft so that when seed falls in, it'll grow. And so he had to chop the ground and make it nice and soft with this grub hole. All right? Now that's how the Indians lived before America was discovered. Now let's go back to the map here. And the French begin to explore. Now to explore means to go into unknown territory to discover what is there. The French had no idea what North America was like because there were no maps. So he's going to go up the rivers and across the lakes exploring. And wherever he went, he took the flag of France with him. And he planted the flag of France in this new territory, and he declared very solemnly, I take possession of all these lands, territories, and waters for the King of France. And then that belonged to France. You know that Minnesota belonged to France for over 100 years, because the French were the first ones, explorers, to come to Minnesota. So Champlain discovered these 3 lakes here, and then Jean Nicolet discovered Lake Michigan in 1634, and then Brulé discovered Lake Superior in 1622, and then 2 Frenchmen discovered Minnesota in 1658. 1658. And their names were Radisson and Groseilliers. Radisson and Groseilliers discovered Minnesota. Then came Marquette and Joliet. And then came Duluth and Hennepin. And all these explorers, when they got back to Quebec, they said, oh boy, talk about Indians. Thousands of Indians out there in Minnesota and further west. And fur-bearing animals, millions of them. They're running in the woods. They're swimming in the rivers. There's animals everywhere with the most beautiful fur coats you ever saw in the world. Here's what we'll do. We'll form fur companies. Hudson Bay Company, Northwest Fur Company. And we'll send men called voyageurs and fur traders out there to trade with the Indians. And we'll bring back millions and millions of pounds of furs, and France will be the richest and the most powerful nation in the world. So they formed fur companies, and they hired voyageurs. Now, voyageur is a French word meaning traveler. Who was he? He was a young Frenchman from along the St. Lawrence River here, and he had learned from the Indians how to be a woodsman. Because you know the Indians are the best woodsmen in the world. Nobody can beat an Indian. He knows how to live in the woods. He knows how to survive with very little. He knows how to make a home with just what he finds in the woods. And when he runs out of food, he knows how to find food in the woods. So the Indian is the best woodsman. Next to the Indian comes the voyageur, the Frenchman. And so he's going to be hired by the fur companies now, and he's going to come out here to Minnesota to trade with the Indians. How does he go 2,000 miles from Montreal to Minnesota? What kind of a boat? Canoe. Right. Now let me tell you about this wonderful canoe, because this is such a wonderful invention that people all over the world today are using the canoe. You know that they use the Indian canoe in Asia, in Africa, in North and South America, and it was invented by the Indians right here in Minnesota. How did they make a canoe? Watch. First, the Indian goes out in the woods and looks for some very light wood to make the inside frame of his canoe. Now he wants real light wood because he wants it to float on top of the water so it'll go faster. And what's another reason why he wants a nice light canoe? Aha! There's a smart Indian there. So he can carry it, because the Indians traveled for hundreds of miles and there were no roads, no wagons, no horses. So they traveled by rivers and lakes. And so he wants to be able to carry it. Because suppose an Indian wants to visit his grandpa. Well, his grandpa lives on another river 300 miles away. So the Indian goes up his river, you know, and he comes to the end of the river. No more river. The river ends. Now he has to carry his canoe from one river to the other because he hasn't got time to make another one. It takes weeks to make a canoe. So he wants to carry it from this river to the next river, which might be miles away. So he wants a real light canoe so he can carry it. What kind of wood did he discover makes the best inside of the canoe?
Birch?
No, that's the outside. White cedar. Cedar. Cedar is the lightest wood in the woods, and when he gets through with his canoe made out of cedar, it's only going to weigh 60 or 70 pounds. Easy to carry. Now, what does he put on the outside? Birch. Birch bark. I'll tell you why. The Indian discovered that when you take the bark off of a birch tree, it's full of sap. And when it's full of sap and wet, you can bend it and shape it. When it gets dry, you try to bend it too far and break it, split it. So he takes the bark off of the birch tree, shapes it around his canoe, and when that dries, that's tough. Water can't go through there. Now the Indian has a problem. How is he going to put his canoe together? Remember, he has nothing in iron or steel, so he has no nails, no bolts or screws, no steel wire, no rope. Rope is made with a machine. What does he use? No, leather stretching.
A hoof of a deer that melted down.
He make glue with that. He doesn't use glue on the canoe. The root of the spruce tree. Now the spruce tree is the same tree you use for a Christmas tree. Do you know what the Indian discovered? He discovered when he pulled that root up out of the ground, it was long and thin like this, but it's tough, tougher even than rope. And when it's full of sap, it's pliable like rope. So he takes the root of the spruce tree and lashes his canoe together. And now it's almost ready, except he has to put something on there to keep the water out. What does he put on there?
Clay.
Clay? No, clay is no good.
Tar.
No.
Yeah.
From what tree?
Um,
The pine tree. Pine pitch or spruce gum, that sticky stuff. He puts that on there and it sticks, makes the canoe absolutely watertight, and it's ready for the river. And he can repair that anywhere, because if it splits when they hit a rock, he can take it ashore. And he always, when he goes on long trips, the Indian was pretty smart, you know. When he went on long trips in his canoe, he always brought along a spare tire. He brought along some birch bark. He brought along with him in the canoe some spruce root, and he brought along with him some pine pitch. And so he would sew the patch on with the root of the spruce tree and put some pine pitch around the patch, and voila, the canoe is absolutely watertight again until he hits the next rock. All right, now, so the voyageur is going to make a canoe just like the Indians. But he's not going to make a small one like the Indians. Oh no, because it's going to take him all summer to get out here, and he has to stay out here for a year or two because he can't come back the same year. It's too far. He has to stay out here a year or two. Well, if he takes a small canoe, he's going to bring back only a few 100 pounds of furs, and the trip won't be worthwhile. So you know what the voyageur did? He made a big canoe called the Montreal canoe, master canoe. Do you know that that canoe was as long as from here to the wall over there? 40 feet long, 6 feet wide, 3 feet deep. Aha! Now he can carry between 6,000 and 8,000 pounds of provisions to give to the Indians, and a year or two later he comes back with 6,000 to 8,000 pounds, 4 tons of furs. Now his trip is worthwhile. It took 12 strong, young, brave voyageurs to paddle that big heavy canoe. 12 voyageurs in each 40-foot Montreal canoe. As soon as the ice is out of the river in the spring, he starts out from Montreal for the west. How many of you boys and girls have been in a canoe? All right. Now, when you're in a canoe, you don't fool around. If you do, you're in the water. Now, loading a canoe so it won't tip over is even a trickier job. Suppose the voyageurs are loading up the canoe in the spring here in Montreal to head for Minnesota. And they have everything they put in the canoe are called packs. So he's going to have a pack, say, weighs 150 pounds. Guns, knives, and 150-pound pack he puts on this side. Suppose the next pack is just cloth and blanket, weighs only 50 pounds, puts on this side. Well, if he continues like that, that canoe is going to tip over. So here's what they did. In the warehouses here, where they loaded up, they had scales. And when the pack reached exactly 90 pounds, he said, wrap it up, try it up. Now it's ready for the canoe. Well, if everything weighs 90 pounds, that's easy to load a canoe so it won't tip over. I put 50 packs on this side and I put 50 packs on that side, and I know that my canoe will always be level and will not tip over. And so, in late April, early May, they jump in their loaded canoes and head for Minnesota. Well, they don't go very far when they come to a fall, high as this building. So they turn around and go back, because that darn canoe, you know, won't fly up the falls. What do they do now? Right. What do we call that? Portage. It's a French word meaning a place where you carry things around. Now they're going to have to dig out all of those packs, hundreds of packs, put them on their back, walk up steep rocky trails, no sidewalks, around the falls, the water above the falls, it's not too swift, so that they can put the boat back in. Now when the canoe is empty, 6 voyageurs go back to pick up this big 40-foot canoe, because it's now soaking wet, weighs over 400 pounds. They carry the canoe around, and then they reload the canoe. Now imagine, between Montreal and Minnesota, 36 portages. 36 times that summer they had to walk around the falls, or around the rocks, or whatever hindered them from going through with the canoe. 36 portages. Some of the portages were short, the length of this school building, a few hundred feet. Some portages were 3 miles long, some 6. And right up here on the Pigeon River, between Canada and Minnesota, called Grand Portage, that portage is 9 miles long. Now the voyageur was a very proud and strong fellow. He never carried less than what he weighed himself. Oh no. Very proud of his strength. And so he would all carry at least 2 packs when he went around the falls. If each pack weighs 90 pounds and he carries 2 packs, how many pounds does he carry? Anybody know? Oh boy, we got some great mathematicians here. 180 pounds. Suppose he carries 3 packs.
270.
270, right. Suppose he carries 4. 360 pounds. Oh boy. Now they would carry more than 2, and it happened like this. The voyageurs started out at the age of 16 or 17. So at that age, boys are very competitive. They want to pit their strength and their skill against the other guy. That's why we have games, see who's the best. So one voyageur says, "Hey, Pierre, mon ami, I can carry 3 packs, 270 pounds, from here way over there." And Pierre says, "That's nothing, I can carry 4. So they would see which one could carry the most packs the furthest, but most of the time they carried 2 packs. All right, now they get to Minnesota and they build a fur boat, because they have to live there all winter. And everything is made out of logs, because there are no sawmills there yet. So if they need a table, a house, storeroom, or a chair, or a bed, they have to make it out of logs. And then they have to put a stockade around those buildings to keep the animals out, not the Indians. The voyageurs and fur traders got along with the Indians very well. There was no killing, no attacking. It's when the white people came out here and started to settle here and told the Indian, "You can't live here now. This all belongs to the white people. You can't hunt here anymore. You can't fish here anymore. You got to go back and live in the woods, called a reservation." That's when the Indians got angry and began to attack the white people. But the fur trader and the voyageur got along very well with the Indians. Okay, now I'm going to teach you an Indian song that the Indians, thousands of years ago, right here along the Mississippi, loved to sing. So all of you boys and girls, sit up straight there now, and let's make believe you're all Indians. And I'm the chief, you see. All right. Now, this gets complicated, so pay attention. All of you adults there, get in this too here. Everybody put your fist in the air like this. All right, here we go. This is the way it goes. 1 finger, put up a finger. 1 finger, 1 thumb, keep moving. One finger, one thumb, keep moving. One finger, one thumb, keep moving, and sadness goes away. All right, fist in the air. Sing along with me. One finger, one thumb, one arm, keep moving. One finger, one thumb, one arm, keep moving. One finger, one thumb, one arm, keep moving, and sadness goes away. Get ready. One finger, one thumb, one arm, one foot, keep moving. One finger, one thumb, one arm, one foot, keep moving. One finger, one thumb, one arm, one foot, keep moving, and sadness goes away. This is a dandy. Get ready. Fist in the air. Everybody. One finger, one thumb, one arm, one foot. Stand up. Quick. Sit down. Keep moving. One finger, one thumb, one arm, one foot. Stand up. Turn around. Sit down. Keep moving. One finger, one thumb, one arm, one foot. Stand up. Turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around. Sit down. All right. Now the voyageurs have built a fur post right here on the Mississippi River. And in that fur post are buildings where they're going to eat and sleep all winter. And they also have a store in there with shelves. Because in those packs that they take out of the canoe, they're going to crack those packs open and put all of these wonderful manufactured goods up here that when the Indian comes in, he can see what he needs or wants in exchange for his furs. So the Indian comes into the fur post. Chief, rain in the face. All right, what do you think is the first thing the Indians wanted from the fur trade post store? What do you think is the first thing? A gun? No. They wanted this axe, the worst way. This steel axe. Look at how sharp it is compared to this big, clumsy stone axe. And look at how firm that handle is there, solid. And he does not have to spend days making this axe. It's already made, ready to go to work. So he wants the axe first. Then he wants the gun. Well, you know the gun 200 years ago isn't like the gun today. Oh no. Today you put cartridges, bullets, shells in a gun, 5 or 6 of them or more, and you can shoot as fast as you can pull the trigger. Not 200 years ago. Oh no. You had the flintlock gun. Now, this is how they loaded the flintlock gun. They loaded it, fired it, and had to reload it because they had no shells or bullets. So he carried on his person when he went in the woods the horn of the buffalo. What do you think is in there? Gunpowder, right. And he pours a little gunpowder down the barrel. This is how they load the gun. Down the barrel. Now with every gun, whether it was a pistol like this one, or the long barrel rifle, had a ramrod with it. And he tamps that powder down real tight. Then he reaches in to his moose hide pouch, where he carries the things he needs every day in the woods. And he takes out a round lead ball like this. And he puts that down the barrel, along with a cloth patch. And he jams that down tight. All right, now he takes some more powder and he puts right here in this little trough here. Because he's got to fire the gunpowder inside. Right here by this trough is a little hole. And when the gunpowder on the outside fires, it fires a charge inside, which explodes and sends the lead ball out at tremendous speed to kill the animal he's shooting at. Well, now he had no matches to fire the gunpowder on the outside. So he picks a piece of flintstone right here on this hammer. Now when I pull the trigger, this flint is going to hit this piece of steel and make sparks. And those sparks are going to fire the gunpowder on the outside, which fires the charge of gunpowder on the inside. See if you can see the sparks. Do you see the sparks? Now sometimes the spark did not reach the gunpowder. And so he has to pull the hammer back and pull the trigger sometimes 3 or 4 times before the gun would fire. Now, 200 years ago, you're in the woods with a gun like this, you had to be a good shot. I'll tell you why. Suppose you're in the gun, it's all loaded, and you're looking for a deer. You want some deer meat, see? But instead of a deer, here comes a big black bear straight at you to attack you. Well, now you better hit that bear right between the eyes the first time, because if you miss the bear, you're not going to have time to reload. It takes a minute to reload. You're not going to have time to reload. The bear will be on top of you, tear you limb from limb, eat you for supper. All right, now that's the gun that the Indians wanted. Then, after the gun, what do you think the Indians wanted? Knives, right. They wanted the skinning knife. They wanted the hunting knife. They wanted the butcher knife, but especially this knife right here. This is called the woodsman's knife. And it's a very wonderful knife to take in the woods. And when the Indian would get this knife, you know what he would do? He would make a handle out of the shin bone of the wolf. Makes a very wonderful handle. After the knives, what do you think the Indian wanted? Traps. Now before he had the trap, he had to use snares. Now a snare is a long rope made of deer hide, and there's a loop out there. And he puts some bait inside of that loop. Then he stands behind a tree. And when the animal comes along, reaches for the bait, and puts his feet inside of that loop, he pulls it tight, catches the animal. Or he would make a hole in the ground. And then when the animal fell in that hole, he'd put some light brush across the top of the bait in the middle. When the animal reached for the bait, it would fall in the hole. Yes, but he had to be handy with a club to knock the animal out, otherwise the animal would scratch its way out. But now, the Indian can go to the fur trade post store and get 40, 50 of these traps. Put them around the swamps, in the woods, everywhere, catch as many animals in one day. All right, now what else do you think the Indian wanted? What do you think the Indian women wanted? Pots and pans, frying pans, different sized pots to cook food in. Before that, they had to cook over the open fire, or they had to dry their meat, or they, but now she can get different size or use clay pots, which gets dirty very easy. You drop a clay pot, break it, takes weeks to make another pot, but now she can go to the fur trade post with her furs and get small pots for small dish, bigger pots, and even great big iron kettles to make maple syrup and maple sugar. You know that the Indians were the only people in the world who know how to make maple syrup and maple sugar. How do you make maple syrup? Take the sap from the maple tree. It was the Indian who taught the white people in the world how to make maple syrup and maple sugar. All right, now, the Indian women also wanted beads to decorate their clothes, you see, like this tobacco pouch of a chief. They like to decorate their clothes, and so they wanted beads. But they got the beads only after they got the other things first. All right. Now here comes Chief right in the face. Chief, what do you want today? Chief says, I want a gun. All right, Chief, if you want a gun, you bring me 15 of your nicest beaver furs, because beaver was the most valuable fur that the Europeans wanted. They wanted beaver coats and beaver hats. And so you bring me 15 beaver pelts, and I'll give you that gun and some shot and some gunpowder. Well, says, I have only 10 fox furs today. All right, Chief, for your 10 fox furs, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you an axe. I'm going to give you 2 knives. I'm going to give you 3 traps and a thick woolen blanket to keep you warm this winter. And that's how they would trade, depending on the value and the size and the quality of the furs. So let's look at some furs here. You've seen the deer hide fur already. What have I got here? Fox. Rarely, but once in a while, this would come in blue or silver. Ooh, that was worth much more. What have I got here? Raccoon, right. Makes a very beautiful coat. What have I got here?
Muskrat.
Muskrat, right. Trapper over there. A small animal, but makes a very beautiful soft fur. What have I got here?
Weasel.
Mink. Mink wasn't very popular then. What have I got here?
Beaver. Bear. Beaver.
Beaver. Bear is too scraggly. It isn't good for a coat or a hat. Good only for a robe or to put on the floor or on the teepee. And underneath these guard hairs here, which are tough, is a soft plush. And this is what made the beaver so valuable. Okay, what have I got here?
Skunk.
I just put that in here for fun. They didn't want the skunk old pew. What have I got here? The wolf. You don't see many wolf coats today because the wolf is a protected animal. So it doesn't disappear completely. They've made laws. If you're caught killing a wolf or a bald eagle, our national birds, you can get 5 years in prison and $10,000 fine. Well, the voyageurs take all the furs they get from the Indians that winter, pack them into 90-pound packs, and put them in their great big Montreal canoe, 4 tons of furs, and they go back to Canada, turn the furs over to the fur company, and that was the fur trade. And the one that made all of this possible was the voyageur, because without him, you know, nobody can go anywhere. And so it's a young French voyageur who opened up the whole interior frontier of North America. He opened it all up so that people weren't afraid anymore to go west, weren't afraid of animals or Indians. And so the voyageur caused 2 great countries to be born, Canada and the United States. All right, now, let me tell you something a little about the voyageur. Notice the feathers. As a young voyageur, he cannot wear the feathers. Oh no, he's got to earn it. He earns it by learning all of the things that he has to do as a voyageur. But he knows all of the things he has to do as a good voyageur, and then he can wear the feather. Wore his hair long because there were no barber shops out here. And he wore the pipe around his neck. He loved to smoke the pipe. Of course, he learned from the Indians. And the pipe is made of clay. You put this in your pocket, sit down, break it. So he wore it around his neck so he wouldn't break it. And then every hour, they would stop the canoe for a pipe break, because he needed a little rest every hour from paddling. And so this stopping for the pipe was so regular, sometimes he measured distance by the pipe in this manner. Hey, Pierre, how far from here to Thunder Bay? Pierre said, 3 pipes. How far was it? 3 hours from now, we will arrive at Thunder Bay. Well, now, how did they light their pipes? Because they had no matches. Watch. He would reach into his moose hide pouch, and he would pull out a piece of steel like this. See how that's made for the hand, like this. Then he would take a rock, usually flint, and some dry grass, or straw, or leaves, something real dry, and then he would begin to make sparks. Now those sparks are awfully hot, and that's what starts the fire. See? Okay, now, you boys and girls have been very good this evening. I have a short movie, about 10 minutes.